The world didn't just wake up to headlines, it woke up to shockwaves. In a stunning escalation that has rocked global politics and military stability, Israel has launched a bold and highly coordinated assault on Iran's nuclear infrastructure. The mission: Operation Rising Lion. Explosions have ripped through key Iranian sites, drones are darkening the skies, missiles crisscross the airspace, and military chatter hints at a possibility many feared: nuclear retaliation. The question is no longer if tensions will escalate, it's how far will it go. Is this the flashpoint for an all-out Middle Eastern war, or something that could spiral into a larger global crisis? After years of smoldering hostility, cyber skullduggery, proxy wars, and shadow diplomacy, Israel has gone public and kinetic, crossing a red line that many believed would never be breached. Operation Rising Lion, now in full swing, is a military blitz aimed at dismantling Iran's nuclear capabilities. The targets were no secret: centrifuge hubs, missile depots, uranium enrichment facilities, and the military elite guiding Iran's nuclear ambition. As fiery plumes rose from cities like Natanz and Fordow, the world watched in stunned silence. But this isn't just about military posturing. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, confirmed that several high-ranking Iranian commanders and nuclear scientists were killed in precision strikes, making it clear that this operation isn't symbolic, it's strategic, it's surgical, it's deadly. The question echoing through diplomatic halls and emergency war rooms now: why did Israel choose this exact moment? To answer that, we must revisit the turbulent legacy of enmity that binds these two nations. It all began in 1979. Iran's Islamic Revolution overthrew a pro-Western monarchy, replacing it with a hardline theocratic regime. From that moment, Iran's leaders severed relations with Israel and declared it an enemy of Islam. They dubbed Israel the Little Satan, and their foreign policy has since funneled billions into groups like Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad, forces aimed at destabilizing Israel's regional presence. Israel, feeling increasingly encircled and threatened, adopted a zero-tolerance stance toward weapons of mass destruction in enemy hands. This doctrine, rooted in the famous Begin Doctrine, declares that Israel will strike first if it detects an existential threat. And that threat has loomed larger with every step Iran has taken toward developing a nuclear weapon. By mid-2025, Israel's intelligence pointed to Iran stockpiling enriched uranium at near weapons-grade levels. Diplomatic backchannels were drying up, deadlines passed, patience wore thin. Then came June 2025. Operation Rising Lion struck over 100 critical targets in Iran, decimating key facilities and eliminating top officials in a single night. Iran's response was swift. Over 100 drones launched toward Israel's airspace. The Iron Dome intercepted most, but the signal was clear. This war has entered a new phase. Was this explosion of conflict inevitable, or did the world ignore the ticking clock for too long? This war didn't begin overnight. It was born out of a year-long buildup of provocations and retaliations stretching back through 2024. One pivotal moment stands out: an April 2024 Israeli airstrike on Iran's consulate in Damascus. That single act killed multiple high-ranking IRGC commanders and lit the fuse that now explodes across the skies. Iran didn't waste time retaliating. Just hours after Israel's strike, Tehran initiated its own Operation True Promise, a thunderous show of force that marked a historical moment. For the first time since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran directly struck Israeli soil, launching nearly 200 ballistic missiles toward critical targets, including the Nevatim and Tel Nof air bases. Score nodes of Israel's aerial defense infrastructure. The strike sent shockwaves across the globe. While much of the world was still grappling with the news of Operation Rising Lion, the Middle East was already on fire. Throughout the second half of 2024, the tit-for-tat escalated. Israel had been surgically targeting Iranian military outposts, weapons convoys, and proxy networks in Syria and Lebanon, dismantling Hezbollah infrastructure and intercepting Iranian arms shipments. Iran, in turn, mobilized its vast network of proxies from Syria, Iraq, and Yemen and escalated the use of drones and mid-range missiles to target Israeli civilian and military areas. By early 2025, global anxiety had intensified. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, released a chilling report. Iran had significantly increased its uranium enrichment levels, pushing dangerously close to weapons-grade thresholds. The report also noted that Iran had accumulated enough enriched uranium to potentially build multiple nuclear warheads, if they chose to. Diplomacy was crumbling. Months of stalled negotiations between Iran and Western powers yielded no progress. Pressure mounted on Israel. The intelligence briefings grew darker, and satellite images confirmed alarming new developments at Iranian nuclear sites. Inside Israel's security cabinet, one consensus hardened was no longer an option. On June 13, 2025, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, citing a rapidly narrowing window for action, authorized a full-scale preemptive operation, Operation Rising Lion. Its objective: to dismantle Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure in one overwhelming strike. And as the world slept, the sky over Iran exploded. In the early morning hours, over 200 Israeli aircraft, including stealth fighters, drones, and radar jammers, roared across Iranian airspace. Their targets: more than 100 high-value locations, chosen with brutal precision. Facilities in Natanz and Fordow, the beating heart of Iran's nuclear ambitions, were reduced to fire and rubble. But Israel didn't stop there. Their warplanes and cyber units also hit missile sites, IRGC command centers, radar installations, and air defense systems that had once seemed untouchable. What made this assault so staggering was the level of preparation behind it. Months earlier, Mossad operatives had slipped into Iran, planting remote-triggered explosives, marking coordinates, and installing surveillance micro-drones inside strategic locations. When the sky lit up, so did the ground. Internal sabotage and aerial strikes worked in flawless coordination. The blow was severe. Among the casualties were IRGC Chief Commander Hossein Salami and nuclear scientist Feridun Abbasi, along with dozens of senior military officers. Iranian state television confirmed the loss but vowed retaliation. Within hours, Iran launched over 100 retaliatory drones aimed at Israel. But Israel's Iron Dome and Arrow missile defense systems sprang into action, intercepting most threats before impact, preventing widespread devastation, at least for the moment. The question now, looming like a shadow over the entire world: was Operation Rising Lion a surgical strike to stop a nuclear nightmare? Or did it just open the gates to something far more uncontrollable? The response was immediate, loud, polarizing, and brimming with global tension. The world didn't just witness events unfold. It held its breath. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stood before the cameras, face taut with conviction, calling Operation Rising Lion a last necessary warning to those threatening Israel's existence. "We did not strike out of aggression," he declared. "We struck out of a will to survive." A nuclear-armed Iran is not a risk Israel will ever accept. Not today, not tomorrow. In Tehran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei answered with defiance. The supreme leader condemned Israel's actions as a full-scale act of war, vowing harsh retribution. In a fierce national address, he promised Iran would choose the time and place to retaliate and make the world remember it. Almost instantly, Iran pulled out of nuclear negotiations, cutting ties with both US and EU envoys, obliterating what little remained of diplomatic channels. The United Nations Security Council scrambled into emergency session. Secretary General Antonio Guterres, visibly shaken, urged both nations to de-escalate, warning that further confrontation could tip the entire globe into a humanitarian and security disaster. Markets worldwide convulsed. Oil prices surged more than 7%, triggering chaos in energy sectors. Global stock indices dropped sharply. Wall Street, Tokyo, Frankfurt, all shaken as the world realized this wasn't a local flashpoint. It was a geopolitical tremor with aftershocks. waiting. And diplomacy pull these nations back from the brink, or are we seeing the unraveling of Middle Eastern stability? Beyond nuclear facilities and military command centers, real lives were shattered. In Tehran, explosions lit up the dawn sky. Residential blocks rattled from distant strikes, sending families into panic. Civilians ran for cover without sirens or warnings. Hospitals quickly overflowed. And in an effort to control the narrative, Iran cut off the internet, plunging cities into isolation and silence. In Israel, retaliation came fast. Iranian drones buzzed over civilian zones, air raid sirens wailed through quiet neighborhoods, the Iron Dome fired relentlessly, intercepting most threats, but anxiety gripped everyone below. Families fled to shelters, schools closed, streets emptied. Even in cities untouched by the blasts, fear reigned. And under it all, one emotion bound both sides: dread of what's next. How far can nations go in the name of national security without losing sight of the innocent lives caught in the middle? The timing of Israel's operation wasn't random, it was a calculated storm. Netanyahu claimed Iran had reached a nuclear threshold, and with diplomacy deadlocked, the time to act had arrived. Intelligence confirmed it. Uranium enriched to near weapons-grade ballistic activity and weapons research accelerating underground. Mossad's role was pivotal. For months, agents smuggled in explosives, mapped air defenses, and tracked senior IRGC leaders. One of the strike's most chilling feats was luring several top Iranian commanders into one location and eliminating them in one precise hit. Timing was everything. Iran's economy was fragile, protests simmered, and Khamenei's aging leadership left the regime exposed. Israel saw a window and struck. But the question now lingers in the global conscience. Was this the price of survival, or the start of something uncontrollable? Iran has made one thing clear: its retaliation will be fierce. The Islamic Republic is now weighing options that could range from direct missile strikes against Israeli cities to assaults on U.S. military bases across the region. And it may not act alone. With a vast network of proxy forces at its command, including Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq, and armed groups in Yemen, Iran could orchestrate a wave of coordinated attacks that extend far beyond its borders. The global economy is already bracing for impact. Crude oil prices have jumped nearly 8%, and energy analysts warn that any further escalation could send prices soaring past $100.00 per barrel. That would ripple through inflation indexes worldwide, deepening financial instability and straining economies already on edge. Behind closed doors, world leaders are scrambling. Diplomatic backchannels are working overtime, with the United Nations urging restraint and mediators from Europe and Asia quietly attempting to defuse the situation before it spirals into open war. But with Iran and Israel locked in confrontation and neither side backing down, the possibility of peace remains perilously thin. Can global diplomacy rein this in? Or are we sleepwalking into a wider war? The Middle East now teeters on the edge of chaos. With the launch of Operation Rising Lion, Israel didn't just target Iran, it may have redrawn the lines of global stability. What began as a regional dispute now holds the potential to ignite a conflict the world is utterly unprepared for. And while political leaders navigate their high-stakes strategies, it's the innocent civilians, children, families, everyday people who are caught in the crossfire, paying the price for decisions made in secret rooms. In this critical moment, the world must ask itself, are we at a historic turning point, or are we witnessing the slow march towards something catastrophic? If you think people need to hear what's really happening beyond the headlines, tap the like button. Share this story. Awareness is our first line of defense. Subscribe for real-time updates, untold truths, and bold insights from the front lines. Drop a comment. Can this conflict be diffused, or have we crossed the point of no return?